In 1914, the world held its breath, and then it shattered. Millions died, empires collapsed, and nothing would ever be the same again. This is the story of the war that changed the world, the Great War, World War I, the powder keg of Europe. Europe in the early 1900s was like a room filled with gas. All it needed was a single spark. That spark, a gunshot in Sarajevo. June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary is assassinated by a Serbian nationalist. The man who pulled the trigger was Gavrilo Princip, but what exploded was far greater than any single bullet. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia. Russia defended Serbia. Germany backed Austria. France supported Russia, and Britain joined in when Belgium was invaded. And in just weeks, Europe tumbled into war. It was a new kind of war. Everyone thought it would be quick. It was supposed to be glorious. Home by Christmas, they said. But they were wrong. This wasn't the old-fashioned kind of war. This was modern, industrialized slaughter. The trenches stretched from the North Sea to Switzerland. They were filled with mud, rats, barbed wire, and fear. That was daily life. Machine guns mowed down thousands in minutes. Artillery shook the earth for miles, and then there was poison gas. A silent, invisible, choking ghost that drifted across the battlefield. It wasn't war, it was hell in slow motion. Imagine this. You're 19 years old, knee-deep in mud, disease, and death, and you're writing a letter home under the flicker of a candle. Shells are exploding in the distance, and you haven't seen the sun in days. A letter from a young soldier's diary from the Battle of Marne, dated September 8, 1914, reads, "Dear Mother, I am safe for now, but the man next to me this morning, well, he wasn't so lucky." Stoic words are a reminder that these weren't just soldiers. They were brothers, sons, and fathers. Their stories weren't just about glory. They were about survival. But this wasn't just Europe's war. This was a world war. The fighting quickly spread to Africa. Then Japan joined in. After that, the Ottoman Empire entered the war. As countries zeroed in on each other, the Middle East quickly became a battlefield. India, Australia, and Canada, who were all nations of the British Empire, sent troops by the hundreds of thousands. Because of that, colonial soldiers fought and died in a war that was never truly theirs. For 3 years, the U.S. stayed out of the conflicts. The United States was simply watching and waiting. But in 1917, after German submarines sank civilian ships like the British Lusitania on May 7, 1915, then the British SS Arabic in August of 1915, followed by the French passenger ship, known as the Sussex, in March of 1916, America was forced to put its foot down. Soon after the sinking of the ships, President Woodrow Wilson was quoted as saying, "The world must be made safe for democracy." With fresh American troops, money, and weapons, the tide began to turn. The endgame is when empires fall. By 1918, Germany was exhausted. Austria-Hungary was collapsing, and the Ottoman Empire was breaking apart. Russia had already bowed out as it was slowly consumed by revolution. In 1917, Russian Tsar Nicholas II was gone, and Lenin was in with the Bolshevik seizure of power. On November 11, 1918, the guns finally fell silent and the war was over. But the cost was unimaginable. The human cost was massive. The total cost of life was 16 million dead and another 20 million wounded. An entire generation was lost in trenches, gas clouds, and hopeless charges into machine gun fire. They called it the war to end all wars. But it wasn't. They say the devil is in the details, and in this case, the seeds of the next war were buried in the details. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles tried to stitch peace together, but it stitched bitterness instead. Germany was humiliated and burdened with crushing debt and guilt. From those ashes, a new fire would rise, a fire named World War II. Some people might wonder why World War I still matters. Well, World War I wasn't just a war, it was a breaking point in human history. It changed borders as it ended empires and went on to redefine war, politics, and the 20th century as a whole. Even today, our world still echoes with the choices made in the mud of the Western Front. In closing, if you've ever wondered how the world became what it is, start in 1914. It was a time of empires, egos, and errors. A reminder of what happens when diplomacy dies and humanity forgets the cost of war. This was the entire history of World War I in 10 minutes. But history never truly ends. It lives in us, in every peace we keep, and every war we prevent. Please press like and subscribe to be notified for our future videos. Thanks for watching the History of Everything 123 World War I edition.